was absolutely true. That most meetings, except for with yours,
Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Caldwell Hearing Examiner for February 15th, 2022. I serve in both a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity as the Mayor and City Council. There are two types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing, whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. Our recommendations are then forwarded on to the City Council, who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. I am authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plot, time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision I may make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes he or she has been aggrieved by my decision has a right to file an appeal to the City Council. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation, I am authorized to only make recommendations to the City Council, who make the decision. The hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code are as follows. One, the staff will first present a report on the application to the applicant or the applicant's representative, will then present the summary of the request. Three, testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in neutral position, followed by those in opposition. I will allow the applicant or applicant's representative's rebuttal. And number 5, after the rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new or oral written testimony will be allowed unless I elect to reopen the testimony. The time limits for testimony will be as follows. The applicant received 10 minutes. All in favor, neutral, opposed will each receive 5 minutes, and there'll be 5 minutes allowed for rebuttal. Question and answers between the participants will extend those times. I accept oral and written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you sign the sign-up sheet to speak and have been sworn in. When testifying before me, you must come to the podium, state your full name and address, and acknowledge that you've been sworn in. I ask everyone to treat all parties with fairness and respect, will not tolerate any outbursts, etc. I also ask that those in the room, please turn off your cell phones. I am a volunteer hearing examiner and receive a small compensation for my efforts. I am charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within the city's and state's rules and regulations. We, the city staff, thank you for courtesy to us and others as we move through the process. With that, I would like to swear in of those about to testify.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you very much. A few items here. Proceed the case on the agenda. The consent calendar action item to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2022 hearing examiner meeting are approved as corrected. Under old business, section 2, we have action item case number SUP 21-09, continued from January 11th, 2022 hearing examiner meeting, continued to the March 8th hearing examiner meeting. This is the Madison Estates subdivision. If anyone is here to testify about the Madison Estates subdivision, that will be held at this room on March 8th. And thank you for coming out if you did. Which brings us to the new business, section 3, action item 1, and that is case number ANN 21-18 SUB 21-48. Request by Hayden Homes to annex 29.51 acres with an R1 low-density residential designated low-density residential the comprehensive plan, and known as the Huntington Ridge West subdivision. With that, I'd like to turn the time over to staff for the presentation of their staff report. Let me add in this moment, I have 4 exhibits submitted prior to the hearing. The first one from Ramsey Boutros, designated ANN 21-18-1. A letter from Clark Wardle dated February 15. I've labeled it ANN 21-18-2. The copy of the applicant's presentation from Keel Engineers, labeled ANN 21-18-3, and a memorandum from Mr. Rob McDonald, project manager from the city, revised February 15, 2022, and this is labeled ANN 21-18-4. And with that, staff, go ahead and make your presentation.
Emma Hill, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn in. So tonight, staff is asking for the consideration of the annexation of 29.51 acres of 3 parcels off Lincoln Road for Huntington Ridge West subdivision. The applicant is also requesting an R1 zone that is consistent with the adjacent properties. The applicant is also requesting the approval of a preliminary plat of development will be subject to a development agreement after the approval. The lots have an average, square foot of 8,796 feet, and the minimum lot being 8,000 feet. The comprehensive plan designation is low-density residential. Staff have, provided analysis of the comprehensive plan for both the annexation and the preliminary plat, and has found them consistent with many goals and policies of the plan. Staff is recommending the approval of the annexation of R1 and the preliminary plat for Huntington Bridge West subdivision.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. And would you speak and the mic a little closer to you, please? Not picking it up. So, per the exhibit, submitted by Mr. McDonald, revised today's date, could you go into the details that were altered from the original submittal, please?
So there were just a few amendments made. We, received, comments from the from the developers, and, those were reflected into the memorandum. Some of them included, there was a change, I know, on the Homedale Road, and, two others, but I'm not sure of the location of this moment. I'll defer to Rob McDonald for clarification.
Yes, please. Mr. McDonald?
Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, yes. Rob McDonald. I work at 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
There were some revisions that were made today, and some of those were for the purpose of just clarification, really, in the document. There were revisions made in the first section of the right-of-way, which discusses the Florida road alignment section, and the necessity to make sure that there is an alignment dedicated either as part of this project or as part of the Huntington Ridge East project, and so I wanted to make sure that that was clarified, and that staff will work with the developer to make sure that that requirement is met. There was also a typo. Let's see, there was a clarification in the sewer section. The city has had a city project on the books to construct a sewer trunk line from the Polk lift station down to the Franklin lift station. And the purpose of that is to eliminate the Polk lift station completely and have a bypass. And so the city was planning to do that project and is doing that project as part of this development as a sewer project. And so I wanted to clarify in there that the city is planning to do this project, but in the case that the city does not do the project, it is still the developer's responsibility to make their own sewer connection to the Franklin lift station. And then there was a section eliminated under storm drain where there was item number 4, and that item number 4 conflicted with item number 2. And so that was eliminated to make sure that it was understood that any pass-through storm drainage from other lots outside of the development would still be permitted to pass through the site without having to retain off-site stormwater entering the site as part of the project. And then the last thing was item number 2 under plat. That had some other roads mentioned in there that were missed from the template that needed to be removed. And then it's just clarification there that there will be no direct access to Lincoln Road or any possible or future extension that may be forwarded. And those are the revisions that were made today. Everything else remained the same, and that was for clarification for this hearing.
thank you, Mr. McDonald. I suppose this is as good a time as any. Some of the correspondence we received hinges on the Florida alignment, and there's discussion of that in your notes, and also from the applicant. So I do have specific questions. Could you put the plat up on the screen, please? There you go. So I want to have a clear understanding of the Florida alignment based on your comments in your revised letter, and just look at what's happening with the first or in process subdivision to the east and this one. And if you just give me a narrative of what you see happening with the Florida quarter section alignment and why that's not being included in this as a paved road, and just could you go through that for me, please?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I'd be happy to go through that. The Florida alignment is the easterly quarter section of this property, and that would be the conventional Florida alignment. Unfortunately, Florida was not extended from the south up to Lincoln Road, and so south of Lincoln Road there is no Florida Avenue that continues through. As this project went through some preliminary design, the developers were looking very closely at the possibility of running Florida up this section line, and it became apparent early on that because of the property owners that lived there, there was a very negative push to make sure that did not go through there. And I'm speaking from my understanding. The applicant is certainly welcome after, when they get up to testify, to clarify or correct anything that I misspeak on. I did speak to one property owner that is implicated, and that individual is also the property owner that owns this entire parcel. And that property owner made it very clear that under no circumstance was there supposed to be a road through there.
Is that Lincoln, Florida you're talking about?
Yeah, the Florida road up through there. So, in the time that I've been with the city, we've run into this situation before, and there's other circumstances where we've had obstacles and property owners that were not willing to participate or sell right away. And in those circumstances, we have looked at options of meandering those collector roads to avoid these situations. In this case, the applicant had the proposal to run Florida on a different alignment, which is about somewhere between 400 or 500 feet east of this proposed alignment. And where they are also proposing another development that is very close on the heels of this one, where that Florida alignment would then be pushed all the way through, completely within their site, where they would have the control to construct the entire Florida road. And this would be constructed all the way up to the north edge of their property. And as I mentioned before, we've dealt with this situation in the city in the past, and we've authorized roads to meander to avoid situations where there's difficulty in development. And in this case, we felt like it was appropriate. There's no specific alignment it needs to be on, simply because there's no continuation south of Florida Avenue. And so we felt like if a realignment or a meander was requested, that would be appropriate, and it would be able to continue north and get up to the edge of their development.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. So just a note on that, should that 400-foot west extension occur, that you still have an opportunity to line that on the north end of this property? Is there same chance of making it through Florida Avenue as it exits the north end?
So as it exits the north end, it does not line up on the original alignment. It is still 400 or 500 feet east of that.
but I guess, is it feasible to carry that through to the north?
Mr. Chairman, it carries through to the north edge of the proposed development of Huntington Ridge East. It does not continue any beyond that, as proposed or planned at this point.
Okay, I just, want to play on the road, no pun intended, that Florida could be continued at some point.
Yeah, and so for clarification, this developer's responsibility is to continue it to the north edge of Huntington Ridge East. It is intended that road would continue in the future as development in the north progresses. They would be obligated to continue that road north, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Now, I have a second concern here about there being a single ingress-egress into the subdivision. In my planning background, that was to be avoided at all costs, particularly when you get into these larger subdivisions, for a number of reasons, safety, access, fire, and public safety, etc. Could you address that issue for me, please?
Yes. So as we look at the access, the topography on Lincoln Road is a little bit unique in that as you are driving west, Lincoln Road climbs up a pretty steep hill as you approach the top of Canyon Hill and enter to the top of Canyon Hill there. Initially, their access point was proposed to be further west, and we asked them to push it as far as they could to the east, simply because we wanted to make sure vehicles coming off that hill had plenty of stopping sight distance and the ability to maneuver if a car was pulling out of that driveway. At the location it's placed now, we feel like that there is plenty of space and room for a car to stop that's coming up the hill. Putting the driveway closer to the hill or pushing the driveway further west would just increase the safety. It would decrease the safety component of having access there onto Lincoln. We do have a fire access proposed, and the fire department has worked with the applicant. They have proposed a fire access in the northwest corner of the site, so that a fire apparatus can and will be able to get through there where the sewer line will be coming in. And then they have access, as you say, one access point onto Lincoln Road. Lincoln Road is also partially controlled by the Highway District, and they had reviewed this and they felt like this was the best outcome. If my recollection serves me well, that is what they had commented on. So.
And Mr. McDonald, the proposed fire access on the northwest corner, what would that look like?
That would be an all-weather surface that follows the sewer line and comes into the site through that access point. There's an access road that comes between those. You can see up on the kind of that northeast corner, there's an access area that comes in on the north side of that north lot. And that's what the fire department would access.
And would there be a blockage there, or bollards, or anything of that nature?
Yes. So typically, a fire access would be have bollards, and those would be removable so that an apparatus could get through, but it wouldn't be open to the public.
Okay, that sounds like curiosity on that. Back to the single ingress-egress. I've seen treatments, I guess it's a well-known fact. I worked at the city of Boise. One of the solutions suggested by the fire department on numerous different subdivisions was to have a divided boulevard type entryway at the single point of ingress-egress to essentially broaden that, make it more feasible for traffic to flow, or say like in a fire situation. Has there been a discussion along those lines with the applicants?
I have not had any discussion along those lines with the applicant. Maybe they have spoken with the fire department about that specifically, but I have not.
And that was my next question. I didn't see anything, in the staff report from the fire department, have they ever expressed a concern about a single point of ingress egress on a subdivision like this? I mean, is that germane to the way they want to develop things?
With my interaction, with the fire marshal is that, for a development that's larger than 30 lots, 2 access points are required. In this case, where they have a fire access on the north and a primary access on Lincoln Road, that would generally satisfy their requirement.
And is that a comment, that nature included in the staff report, or you get no comment from, fire?
Yeah, no comment in the staff report, but they have reviewed the site plan to my knowledge and don't have any comments.
And, do you think it's a good idea perhaps to have this split boulevard entryway? Does that get us closer to, safety, be able to handle, public safety vehicles?
If you're asking for my opinion,
Yes.
I don't know that a split boulevard helps in access for a fire apparatus, because what you end up having is 2 more narrow passages, and it's just as easy for a car to be parked on one of those and blocking those. And so having one road coming in may be just as well, but I'm no expert on the operations of a fire apparatus, and so I don't know what the fire department would prefer.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful. And the next consideration, I'd like to look at, again, it's one point of ingress, egress. This just goes against the grain of my background as a planner. So have you had the discussion of studying a road out to the east, particularly lining up with a commensurate road from the eastern portion of this development proposal?
Mr. Herring examined that. I believe that discussion was had early on, but it became apparent with conversations with those property owners that would not be able to cross any of those private access points. Now, if the intent is to have a stub out, that may be in 30 years or some very distant future time could be connected, that may be a possibility. That may be a question that the applicant can address a little closer as they've had their dealings with the property owners.
And I was looking at the proposed plat for the Huntington East. There is a road that I guess it's cul-de-sac that would roughly align with, and I can't read the name on this, but the first crossroad as you enter into the subdivision, and then there's an east-west crossroad elevated approximately 500 feet into the subdivision, running some kind of stub road at that point from both directions. Is that a possibility? Mr. Hearing Examiner, it's definitely a possibility. I don't know, like I said, the timing on when that could actually be connected, I have no idea. But theoretically, at some point in the future, that connection may be able to happen. Yeah, that would satisfy my concern about east-west travel through this, neighborhood to be presumably. And did you have that discussion with the applicant as far as studying that out on both subdivisions? My recollection, I think we did have those discussions early on. We have not had those discussions recently because of the outcome of the way this is developed. I'm certainly happy to have those discussions again if it would be, if it'd be your recommendation for us to look at that one last time. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I guess the next question, could could you please clarify for me that we have two applications, this one before us and the Huntington East that would come in the near future, is that correct?
So the Huntington Ridge East has been submitted to the city.
But
And
it's not gone before the board.
It has not come before a public hearing, but it has been submitted to the city.
And I'm assuming it's the same applicant and developer for each subdivision?
Correct.
Okay, and so that's just leading up to the question I have about the contingency of Florida and making these potential connections from east to west subdivision. How much can we condition in this proposal for those future actions in the eastern proposal? Because we're very specific to these parcels of record, and I don't know, where the city is at as far as being able to make that request for the future subdivision to fulfill the kind of concerns that we're looking at here. Are you confident that we can essentially make an approval contingent on a future subdivision, or we can anticipate making conditions of approval in that future subdivision to reflect this kind of discussion we're having about connectivity?
So with regards to the connectivity, there can be conditions placed in this hearing, maybe that are contingent on a future subdivision. And I believe when the other side or the Huntington Ridge East goes, then those conditions could then be applied to that one as well. I think that that's okay. I may not be the right person to ask these questions to, but I will fumble through this. And then with regards to the Florida Avenue realignment in Huntington Ridge East, it was the recommendation of the city attorney that this project does not go to city council until that one's going to city council, just to make sure that the Florida Avenue alignment is established for both projects.
Thank you. I believe the city does have that prerogative to schedule its own hearings when these projects are ready and ripe for adjudication for the council. So that's somewhat reassuring. Going back to this, I'm harping on this, the singular egress, there's got a bit of a curve here, a little S-curve going in, which seems to further complicate matters in that ingress-egress. Is there a way to straighten that out?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I'm not exactly sure if the drain may be a conflict with that location. And it also may be the intent to keep the access point as far away from the hill as possible. It may be able to be straightened out a little bit. We can talk to the applicant and see if that's something that's feasible to make it a little easier to get in and out for the citizens, and then also for emergency services.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. So is it your opinion that a straight shot out of there would be marginally safer than this curved or the egress? I don't want to, consider that if there's no net benefit from straightening that out.
That is a very good question. I honestly could probably argue both ways. Straightening it out is easier for someone to drive on a straight road. Leaving the curve in it helps people understand as they're approaching the stop sign coming down to Lincoln that there's something different going on, and so that may help them slow down for the stop sign without running a stop sign. And so whether it's safer or not to have it straight or curved, I don't know that I can answer that accurately, but you know, there's probably pros and cons both ways.
Okay, then, this may be my last question on that, but what does the grade profile look like in that ingress egress? Perhaps that's a question for the applicant, but there's a steep grade coming off of Lincoln down into that. Is that how that works?
So Lincoln Road has a steep grade coming off the hill as you're traveling east, and then it flattens out. I don't know what the grading plan is for this development. They have not submitted grading plans to the city. Maybe the applicant can speak to what their access point looks like specifically with regards to the grading.
Okay, and typically, you want to have sort of a slight upgrade as you come to the stop sign. Is that a design consideration? You probably don't want much of an upgrade approaching the stop sign, because when there's snow or ice on the ground, it makes it extremely difficult to get out. Probably flat is more ideal. Okay.
But again, that's just my opinion.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you, Emma. With that, I would like the applicant to make your presentation, please.
Good evening, I'm Caldwell, 332 North Broadmoor Way, in Maple, Idaho. I've been sworn in. I'm a land use planner with TO Engineers, and I'm representing Cajun Homes, Idaho. Sorry. I'm a land use planner with TO Engineers, and I'm representing Cajun Homes, Idaho, the applicant for Huntington Ridge West. I'd like to first thank your time and space tonight for the hearing for Huntington Ridge West. I'd also like to thank staff for their time and efforts coordinating with us and other input and getting us to hearing tonight. So I'd first like to go to our vicinity map here. So this is looking at Huntington Ridge West. We're located northeast of Caldwell, east of Canyon Hill, in between Mosaic Public School and Georgia Avenue, north of Lincoln Road. As you can see here, there's approved Liberty Springs subdivision to the south, approved El Monterey to the southeast, and Mosaic Public School and Huntington Ridge East to the east. And then looking at existing land use, mostly it's county ag and currently farm land. And then we see those couple little slivers of R1 annexed properties within the city. And then, as you see here, we have R1 zoning to the east, or to the west and southwest, and then approved R1 and R1 QGs at Liberty Springs and El Monterey. And then up and coming Huntington Ridge East will be to the east, which I'll show here in a second, and Mosaic Public School. And then to the north is county ag and rural residential uses. And then looking here, just a little closer at kind of what's going on actually here. So you see the bottom left is approved Liberty Springs subdivision, and to the bottom right is approved El Monterey subdivision. And to kind of hit on the alignment for our primary access, we have aligned that as far away from Canyon Hill and that grade on Lincoln Road, and as requested by the city, aligned with Liberty Springs subdivision to the south. And to answer your question about the grading in that area, as you can see, it's kind of hard to see in the preliminary plat. Maybe it's a downside scale of you have, but if you blow out the topography existing in site, the age ring, obviously the low point on the site, and the road's next to the age ring, but it's a very, very low slope. It's pretty flat in that area. So once you get down the hill and to this area, it's pretty flat. And then to answer your Florida question, so as you see, Huntington Ridge East over there, I'll use my pointer. This is where we have aligned Florida Avenue, right here. On here it's shown as McCutcheon Avenue. GIS requested us to change the name of it because it doesn't align with the existing Florida. So it's going to be called McCutcheon. So it would be functioning as Florida. As you can see there, Monterey, they didn't plan to have Florida through the section line there. And also property owner and owners behind our Huntington Ridge West, they were pretty adamant not having Florida through that section line. They didn't want any public access towards their properties. They wanted to be pretty shielded off as possible from the development and any future developments, down the road. And then, going on to the comprehensive plan, it's Kane County Comprehensive Plan, it's, future land use is residential. And then looking at the City of Caldwell Comprehensive Plan, this is designated as low density residential. And then the land use summary, we are requesting R1 zoning with annexation of the site. It does complement the surrounding area with existing land use, approved and proposed land uses. And we are directly adjacent to city boundaries, with city water and sewer is readily available. And the existing use of the farmland is becoming a island, rapid transition from aggies to residential. That's kind of created this piece of property being feasible for farming. The current property owner has stated that, it's been increasingly with development and traffic on roads it's really hard to farm now. They are looking to develop because it is more feasible for them to do so. But with that, they do want to keep their privacy, so therefore that's why we arranged Florida to be pushed over to the east and the Huntington Ridge east, because there's a lot of pushback and, properties to the north on that section line. And then going on with, the comprehensive plan, both the city and the county designate this area as residential or low density residential. So the proposed request does meet the intent of the City of Caldwell's 2040 comprehensive plan. And then looking into the site plan a little more in depth, so this is the proposed Huntington Ridge West, subdivision. There's going to be a total of 99 lots, 86 of which are buildable, with 13 common lots. We are planning to build this in 2 phases. Our density is 2.83 units per acre, which is under the 3 units per acre maximum in low density residential. All lots are to be accessed by public local streets, and our primary access is again at that Goodman Avenue, which is in line with the primary access approach at Liberty Springs subdivision to the south. And we are proposing in that northeast, in this northwest corner here, lot 32, block 1. That's our emergency access easement, which will also function as a 20-foot sewer easement. And we did have discussions with the buyer early on. We didn't have that secondary access, and that was a request of them for development of this size to provide a secondary emergency access from Polk Street to service the development that needs to be for emergency services. And then Lincoln Road, we are dedicating 34 feet of right-of-way along the frontage of Lincoln Road with a 20-foot landscape buffer in addition to that right-of-way dedication. And also with the sewer, going back to that access, secondary access, that's going to be the main point of extending the sewer main trunk line from Polk Street down to and through the site, as the city engineer has stated. And we are to bring individual water services to each unit of the site off of water main off of Lincoln Road. And then pressure irrigation is to be provided to each lot from a irrigation pump, which is located in the southwest corner here, lot 11, block 1, and that will provide pressure irrigation to all individual lots. And then kind of going into the more, I guess I would say, fun stuff is the landscaping. What makes it look like a great project for the city with all the landscaping amenities we're providing. We are providing 10.8% of qualifying open space on site. And our intent is to keep the A-drain open and as is as much as possible, and being the focal point of the development, we are providing 5 feet concrete pathways on either side of the A-drain. And along this pathway, we are providing a gazebo next to the A-drain pathway, but outside of that easement within the A-drain. We are also proposing a tot lot and playground area to be provided in lot 16, block 1. So kind of in this section here, the tot lot playground's down here with additional landscaping there. And then we have 3 5-foot concrete micro pathways. So one here in lot 10, block 1, one here in lot 60, block 1, and one micro pathway, lot 68, block 1, to provide connectivity from inside of the subdivision to the exterior boundaries. And then lastly, with landscaping, we have provided a 6-foot tall landscape berm along the northern side of the property to provide a privacy barrier between the development and the property owners to the north, as it was requested by them. So again, there'll be 6-foot tall landscape berm with 6-foot tall fencing. And then we have provided additional landscaping throughout the site along Balfour Street, entryway, landscaping on Goodman Avenue and Stallworth Street. There's no direct block access on those streets, and those will be main entryway landscape corridors, and additional landscaping around the A train and other open areas of the site. And then that concludes my presentation for tonight. With that, I kindly request approval for an annexation with R1 zoning and a preliminary plat for Huntington Ridge West, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Excuse me, probably slaughtered the last name here. I do have a couple of questions, the same ones I asked our colleagues work director. What does the configuration look like on that ingress egress? Is it level? Does it drop? What kind of clearance do you have looking up through that?
Yeah, trying to find, so are you talking about the primary egress drive at Goodman Avenue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you look here, this is the preliminary plat. This is the existing grading conditions. Each line, I believe, is a 2-foot contour line, so it's pretty flat in that area. So it's a pretty smooth, no steep roads, no additional grading that will need to be needed so much to accommodate that. It should be pretty flat.
And what does your line of sight look like on Lincoln? Particularly the eastbound traffic coming off the hill. What does that line of sight look like?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, that is a good question. Just to reiterate what city engineer said, we did push that as far east as possible. I don't know personally at the time how far away we are from that steep grade, but I know it does start right here when you start climbing up Canyon Hill. So it could be 300-400 feet before you get to this primary access easement. But I don't have a best answer for that at the time. We do have the developer here that may be able to better answer that question.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to discuss. And to the question of extending a connection through to the Huntington Ridge East, through, it looks like maybe they're like Stallworth, extending that alignment and stubbing that off to the eastern boundary. Have you had that discussion?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, we've had that discussion with staff and the property owner. There's a few property owners, like what they were arguing for Florida. Up here, there's a few parcels up here with homes. They believed and were concerned about having that stub access, creating any traffic or possibly public access onto their driveway between Huntington Ridge West and East. You can kind of see here, this is a driveway easement to service a couple homes just to the north of our site, and they were concerned about having those public roads stubbed to their driveways and people getting on their driveway and getting onto the property and just being a nuisance. So there's pushback as well with Florida and that stub access from the west project and the east.
I understand that we could think about stubbing it off and declaring it a basketball court until the time it's needed. Again, all my training says you've got to have some kind of traffic flow within these subdivisions. And this configuration is the worst possible configuration with this number of houses to have just one point of ingress, egress. Now, on that point, the northwest corner with the so-called fire entrance, would that be capable of becoming or having all the properties of public street? Should that point of ingress, egress be made a public street in the future?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, from our understanding with staff and coordinating with them, it's just unfeasible to be a public access at this time. Its main purpose is that sewer easement extension through there, but with that easement for the sewer extension, it kind of occurred at the same time with fire. That, oh, okay, we can use this as a secondary emergency access, but it's just the way the topography is there and the property lines. It's not going to be a public access road.
But I guess I'm asking, could it be designed to the standards of a public street for the future, if that connectivity is ever desired or by the city?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I believe that would be a question and maybe something we'll need to coordinate with staff more on, if that's something that is requested to be looked more into by you, as we are happy to accommodate how we can. But to the point at our time that we don't, from our understanding, we aren't to build out to public roadway standard, and the city didn't have the intent to do that.
Yeah, my concern is that this design may preclude that from ever becoming a public right of way, when there seems to be the only opportunity to provide that point of ingress, egress should that occur, development to the north. I mean, are you also the engineer on the Huntington Ridge East?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, yes, our company Engineers is, we have designed Huntington Ridge East. I'm a planner, so I do more of the planning side, but we have engineer here at John Carpenter who can ask more engineering-oriented questions if need be.
And the question for that is that, is there potential in that subdivision, the Huntington Ridge East, to step off on the western boundary to align with Stallwood Street or some other point?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, if you look here, we have, this is a super updated design of the east. It's been tweaked a little bit since we submitted, but I believe there could be something possibly here between east and maybe Stallworth. I can't remember entirely, but I believe the configuration is similar. I think we have another public street right down here that connects here to Florida. So there could be a possible stub to the west. Again, we did coordinate with the city staff about doing the stubs, and there was just that pushback from the property owners of providing those stubs. But we are happy to further engage with that discussion down the road, because I do understand your point.
Yeah, that was my next question, and I have two concerns: the single point of ingress, egress, and the flow of traffic through these potential neighborhoods, and that should be interconnected at all points of the compass. Ideally, it isn't always ideal for that to occur, but we do have to look to the future of our street system to make sure that connectivity occurs at the time of subdivision. So that's why I'm exploring these possibilities, and I think it's at least a discussion we should have at this point, and the council will have an opportunity to take a look at as well. I have no further questions at this time, but we will come back to this later in the hearing, probably in the rebuttal, so I appreciate your testimony. And, with that, I'd like to go to the next person who signed up. Tim, no, I'm sorry, I need my glasses. I apologize. Yeah. Can you say your name and address, please, and how you've been sworn in?
Yes, sir. My name is Tim Makwa. I'm with Hayden Homes, 1406 North Main Street, Suite 109, Meridian, 8364G. For June, I acknowledge I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things, and then I'm happy to try to answer some of these questions that you brought up. You have that? I'm looking for the one that, the exhibit that showed the, yeah. One more? Yeah, there you go. Okay. One thing I wanted to point out was both of these subdivisions, Liberty Springs, which is right here, has not been approved by City Council. It was approved by yourself, or recommended for approval to City Council, so that's still somewhat pending. And then El Monterey subdivision was a PUD that has a single-family component that goes all the way down to Marblefront. This subdivision, the Liberty Springs, the El Monterey, and the one south of Liberty Springs, although this is the same 16th line, none of those had an extension of Florida Avenue. In fact, south of Marblefront Road, it goes quite a ways before you can find any north-south oriented street on that 16th line. And that street curves, so it doesn't extend all the way on up through Marblefront. So that's part of why we are proposing to locate this. I think from the city standpoint, the main thing is that somewhere in this area, they have a collector roadway. And so we're proposing that over here, like Rob had indicated, you know, that happens quite a bit for various reasons, whether it's an environmental concern that you're trying to avoid, or in our case, we have this property under contract with the current landowner, and those individuals were adamant that collector road not be on that property, or basically the project was dead. So in that case, nobody wins. So that's where that Florida Avenue, as we're proposing it on the Huntington Ridge East, that's how that all evolved. Does that help kind of explain that a little bit better?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I think that's a resolvable issue in the context that you put forward here. But my greater concern is the single point of egress, and the lack of connectivity between the two subdivisions.
Okay, if I could, Mr. Hearing Examiner, if I could back up just look, some of our original pre-application meetings, fire department was there at that, and at that one I did propose what you had suggested here about a split entry with a width of pavement on both sides of that entry that met International Fire Code for fire apparatus. The fire department didn't like that. They said that that's providing two access points too close for, you know, regular access and emergency access. The other two alternatives are, we've got a pathway here that connects to the pathway at Lincoln Road. I've seen it in a lot of projects that we've done where we'll make that pathway wider, and it's an all-weather surface that's got a bollard on the cul-de-sac end and a bollard down here that are either lockable or collapsible, and only for emergency services access. We'd be fine with that. We would have to have buy-in from the fire department to have those two so close together. My point on that was that although they're close together in an emergency situation where you've got fire trucks coming down the road, sirens and, you know, lights, folks are gonna get out of the way and you're gonna have this access. So, I guess it just depends on where they're fighting a fire in here, but, the point of this, access up here on the north boundary, that sort of evolved from the need for the city to take the Polk lift station offline and bring sewer. Their sewer main, the project that the city is working on, designed, and has funded, is coming right down this, Rooney Way, which is part of why we designed, the roadways to work with that sewer alignment. So this up here is intended to be just a gravel, sewer access, if you will, with bollards on both sides to prohibit, there's no public access to be permitted there. And frankly, I think if we were to propose a public right-of-way here, I think we would have the same objection from, the landowner that we're buying the property from, and would most likely kill the project. So, I apologize, I'm jumping all around, I'm just trying to hit all your questions, but if you, I'll just kind of listen to what you've got, and, happy to try to help. Oh, can I bring one more thing up? So you've mentioned the, public access stub here. Let's see if I got a picture that shows it better. I was looking for the one that showed our Huntington Ridge East as well. So, I mean, you're right, these two are pretty close to aligning. So you could make a condition that we stub an alignment here from Huntington Ridge West and stub an alignment here from Huntington Ridge East. Again, I think it's in the same situation where we've got our property owner owns this strip here, this access easement. And I think if we did that, there's a chance that they may say, your project's done, we're not gonna do the land deal. I know that's not the city's concern, but at the same time, if that happens, you know, none of these issues like this collector road get to happen. It's likely that the sewer wouldn't be able to come through here and take the Polk sewer off, Polk lift station offline. So there's just a lot of parts to this thing. And so I'd be happy to talk to if you wanted to make a condition that we worked with the city to try to work something out as far as, if it's possible to do two stubs, one from this project and then one from the project that we have submitted. I'd be fine with that condition. I'd have to take it up with the property owner of Huntington Ridge West. Any changes that we make, I'm gonna have to go over that with them.
But, for the record, sir, very respectful of the property owner's rights to control ingress and egress and their access, and that's all fine and good, but we plan for the long term.
I understand that.
And, so if this doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. And I think the situation as postulated is fine. And you know, but as city planners, we have to build a functioning city. And that would contribute to that greatly. It'd also provide, you know, a potential second point of ingress, egress for an emergency situation. And that's my concern here. Much less so my concern with the Florida alignment. I think that's doable. I do appreciate your testimony on that. And I may have further questions. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one additional point, Mr. Hearing Examiner. If we were to make the condition on Huntington Ridge West that we provided a stub to this, I think, and maybe Mrs. Bycandy will be signed up to speak. I'm not sure who's signed the list, but you know, would it be an option to consider that we dedicated public right-of-way width through here, but fenced across it and didn't improve it, so that in you know, like you said, you're looking long term. So if the right-of-way is there from both of these, but not necessarily built, at least the right-of-way is there in case the, you know, circumstances change. People eventually move on. We're looking long term, you know, could be 30, 40, 50 years. But at least then, you know, the right-of-way would be there.
Thank you for the idea. I agree with that.
I'd be happy to come back up if you'd like.
Thank you, I appreciate your testimony, sir. Next we have signed up, Jolene, Carpenter, I'm sorry.
I'm here, I have nothing further to add unless you have any questions.
Okay, so are you part of the development team?
I'm a civil engineer with TO Engineers.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate it, thank you, sir. With that, we'll go on to those in the neutral category. Mr. John Lee, please.
I'm John Lee, and I'm 2416 Polk Street, Caldwell, and I have been sworn.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
I just have a few questions. I was the only one on Polk Street that was notified of the hearing, and they're in the impact, according to their map. You had mentioned the emergency access off of Polk Street, and I don't see where that could be unless they're taking out the pumping station and going over side of the hill to this gravel road. Is that gonna prevent people from coming onto Polk Street from the subdivision? If so, are they gonna widen Polk Street? And if they do, they're gonna take out my front of my yard. Because it drops off, it starts at 0, and at the other end, it's 20 feet to the surface of the road. They'd have to go back to the right-of-way another probably 15 feet. Right now, it's virtually a one-way road, even though it is designated as both directions. So to accommodate additional traffic, it would have to be widened. And then speaking with my neighbors, they're all opposed to widening the road. That's the biggest thing that we have is that the widening of Polk Street and emergency access. What's going to prevent people from using that to get in and out, which would increase the traffic and not accommodate the ability for the road to handle it.
Mr. Lee, I think I could address that. My discussion was not to establish a road, but to leave the door open, so to speak, should that ever become a possibility, and just leaving the dimension, roads are typically something like 24-foot paved access, and so we have that 24 feet available, should 20 years from now that ever become a reality. So that's where my curiosity was for that discussion, and I can say that the city has no intention of building an access through there, but just having the potential. Again, we have to build the city one piece at a time,
right,
and anticipate these eventualities. And that's all the discussion we've had. And so I've got it. I'm sure we have no intent of putting anything through there now.
Currently, the way I see it, as a resident on Polk, there's one house lot between me and the city limits. Right beyond that, there's a left turn that goes by 3 houses and then a right turn. And at the point after it turns to the right, approximately 500 feet, it's open ground. I think it's right along the canal that runs there. And that would, if they're gonna put an access point, that would be the best place instead of trying to go over the side of the hill. And you were talking about the Stub Street, and I think that's Nixon. And it is steeper than what Lincoln is. It's almost a cliff. So if they were to put a road, extend Nixon, they would have to go quite a ways into the subdivision to put enough of a grade for people to get up and down.
Right. But I appreciate that information. I've not been to the site. I don't really understand the topography of that because of there's a case law that requests that people in my position don't actually visit the site to avoid ex parte conversations concerning the case. So, but I would have liked to have gone out there. But thank you for your testimony, sir, and, go to the next individual. Like, Harold, Vila. Am I get that right? I'm sorry. Viola. I'm terribly sorry. I should really use these glasses. I brought them with me. Just Viola, please.
Did you see this?
Yes, I did. I appreciated the information in that letter. That was part of it.
Mr. White wrote up and, that had a meeting on the school.
Yes, and state your name and address, please. I didn't swear.
My name is Harold Viola, and I live at 2610 Polk Street on the, as you turn around the corner of the third house down. And, they just brought up this fire accident. Has anybody been out there and seen what the location looks like?
Yeah, I'm sure staff has.
Because I'd like to see where they're proposing this road to get into the subdivision. Like Lee said, this is a gravel road to a certain point, and then that's a, paved road down to the city limits line, and then past that it's county. And then Polk Street is a one-lane dirt road. Now, I don't know how they're gonna get a fire truck down there and get into the subdivision. I'd like to see the proposal of where they're gonna run this road at. They're gonna be taking out some people's property or what? That's one item. My biggest concern, I talked with, yesterday, or a couple days ago, about water situation. You know, I'm on my own well, my own sewer, and I was wondering about the amount of water for this subdivision, what's it gonna do to my well? Now, you notice in, down in Cuna, there's about 11 wells went dry down there, so what's this gonna do to my well? That's my concern. And he had to address that the other day. And the other concern is the, irrigation water. By Candy's put a 10-inch pipe from Lincoln over to where it drains down between, Andy Shipley's property and Kimberly's property. Is that still gonna be in there, or what's gonna do with that? And we also have a drain coming off of Polk Street, that comes and drains down to this other creek. Is that gonna maintain, or are they gonna close that off, and you're gonna have water coming down the street and washing out our road in front of my house? That's my concerns.
So, I can address some of that. Again, I'll repeat that the, Polk Street is not envisioned to be connected with the public right away to this development. And that there's no
No,
plan
but
to
if
do
they're gonna
that.
make a fire truck down Polk Street, how's he gonna get into the subdivision?
Well, it's gonna be through, from Lincoln Street. That's not really, there's no intention of connecting Polk Street to this subdivision at this time. It may happen, you know, maybe not in my lifetime, but, you know, we'd like to leave the potential there. That's what we're talking about. The subdivision code itself addresses the runoff issues. Runoff has to be contained on the site, and the same with the irrigation supply in return, that has to be maintained at historic levels. So I think those issues are all covered in the conditions of engineering as applies to the subdivision, and it's also part of the subdivision code. But I do appreciate your testimony with that, and with that, I'd like to go to the next person testifying. Thank you, sir. In the opposition category, we have Jon Starr.
I'm Jon Starr, and my address is 755 West Front Street, Boise, 702, and I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
wanted to just clarify that we're not in opposition to development on the property. Our concern, it has been about transportation and interconnectivity. The client, Wander Property LLC, has a quarter section of property that's just north of the development. And, we're not looking to impose on any village property rights. We don't intend to cross any village properties and so forth. But as you've very clearly stated, Bruce, that the purpose of planning is to plan for the future. And, at the point that, somebody may want to develop that 150 acres in the future, we need to have a clear understanding of how the transportation grid will address the property. This is a quarter section line road, not a 16th section line road, on the Florida Avenue alignment. I'm not particularly familiar with any, collectors in Caldwell, especially that don't fall along quarter section and section line roads. So we were surprised, that the Huntington East plan, moved that roadway off the quarter section. And, to the extent, so at this point, our biggest concern is that the collector simply not go away. We understand that development will happen in the future, that, we cannot cross our neighbors' properties unwillingly, vis-a-vis the neighbors. But if there isn't a collector laid out in the plan somehow, then in addition to our 150 acres, there's another 800 acres next door that will not have any, suitable access. So, the city's comprehensive plan is well thought out, and, it goes a lot of scrutiny and so forth, called for a collector road on the quarter section. If that's not gonna occur, then, how does it happen, and is it in reasonable proximity, and does it address, the opportunity or the ability, not even the opportunity, but just the ability to access neighboring properties in the future?
Thank you, Mr. Starr. I refer to our earlier conversation with Mr. McDonald, when I was trying to get to that very issue, that there will be access to the north through whichever alignment occurs with Florida. So, we are wanting that to happen, and, we're specifically starting with the subsequent subdivision coming in, the eastern portion of this development. But I do appreciate your concerns, and, I share them with you, and we need to have a grid, a workable grid to promote that.
We've all seen those, stub road, barriers fall down before the neighbor develops their property, and that's fine. That's how future development occurs.
I agree entirely. Thank you, Mr. Starr. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
I'd like to go to Ramsey Boutros, please. Mr. Boutros. And I do have your exhibit here.
I'm Ramsey Boutros. My address is 1116 Winella Drive, Caldwell. I haven't been sworn in. I provided a PowerPoint presentation, but something came up earlier during the applicant's presentation that is raising some questions in my mind. Different aerial views show the fence on their western boundary in different locations. It's not consistent. I would like to get clarification on where the official boundary line is that they're putting the fence.
Yeah, we'll go to that at the end of your testimony. But,
thank you.
Yeah, we'll.
Okay.
Make the question.
Is there a clicker? Should get there. Okay. All right. I'll get through these as quickly as I can. The summary, so as has been discussed, Huntington Ridge West is applying for annexation. 99 lots, 86 are buildable, and they're doing a two-phase build, and the east will add approximately 157 additional lots. So it's a pretty significant subdivision coming in. I've got 3 slides on traffic issues, a couple of slides on comprehensive plan compliance issues, and 2 potential zoning change solutions I would like to bring forward. Traffic issues. The area that we're talking about is bounded on the east by Middleton Road, on the north by Lincoln Road, on the south by Marble Front Road, and on the west by Illinois Avenue. As you know, Lincoln Road and Marble Front Road end up collecting at Indiana, and it's one very busy intersection at Marble Front Road and Illinois. I had a meeting with the city engineer, and Aviation Way and Smead Parkway are both scheduled to be connected north to Lincoln Road, specifically to alleviate traffic congestion from going up onto Lincoln Road into Canyon Hill, which is just a great thing. Currently, Canyon County is planning a roundabout at the intersection of Lincoln Road and Middleton Road, which includes rerouting the eastern side of Lincoln Road north, so it joins the roundabout where it currently hits Middleton a little bit south of the western extension of Lincoln Road. Marble Front Road has been permanently closed at Middleton Road. As I noted, Aviation Way and Smead Parkway are going north, all the way to Lincoln Road. There is no current traffic study for the intersection of Marble Front Road and Illinois Avenue. So the city engineer is authorizing a traffic study for that intersection. This becomes significant on the next slide. Some potential solutions. This is what that intersection looks like. Currently, there is a Maverick on the southeast corner. This is a gas station with a truck stop, and this total intersection of Marble Front Road and Illinois can be quite congested. Some of the potential solutions, and all of these are offered depending on the recommendations of the traffic study. If the traffic study does not recommend one of these, clearly it's not going to be implemented. So, adding a left turn lane from Marble Front to Illinois, that would give 2 left turns to get the traffic off of Marble Front and onto the main road. Adding a right turn lane from Illinois to Marble Front is a potential solution, especially in the afternoon. There's a lot of northbound traffic trying to turn right onto Marble Front. Routing the truck traffic from the Maverick onto North 9th. If you can see that, North 9th in this image is an angled road. Currently, that lower part of it is blocked off. Truck traffic comes out of the filling part, they have to do a hard left turn and then exit past the Maverick building onto Marble Front Road, where they are making a left turn directly into the middle of the left turn traffic. This is difficult. If they're able to go straight through from where they fill up gas at the truck part onto North 9th, that would then allow them to join the traffic queue a little bit further east on Marble Front, which should make traffic flow a little bit better there. All of these were discussed with the city engineer. And then doing traffic light synchronization between the lights at Marble Front and Illinois and the lights at the east and west ramps that are associated with the freeway. And what I am requesting, and I apologize, I don't know what the correct mechanism is for doing this, but approving this subdivision should be made contingent on the traffic study being completed and the city committing to implement whatever the traffic study recommends, for what it's worth. So, I looked at the Caldwell 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and it talks extensively about adequate services, maintaining a high quality of life, the general welfare, these are big terms, the general welfare of the residents, and developments going into areas that can be immediately annexed and provided with public services. And there are some real issues. I think it's unfortunate that some of the providers of public services are not participating in these hearings to give you their direct feedback. I'd love to hear, what are the police going to do about additional population that comes into the city and how they provide those services? What are the fire folks going to do? You've gotten some limited feedback from schools, but these are important issues that they're allowing to just slide through, and it's not helpful to you in making your decisions that they are not giving you their input. We have to have adequate infrastructure. We have to maintain adequate levels of public facilities and services. These are all, this is verbatim from the comprehensive plan. I don't know how applicable the Canyon County Comprehensive Plan is to activity in the city of Caldwell, but I have 2 slides on that in the backup. We may not need to go to that. It depends on your call.
Well, so we do like to wrap that up, but, we have your testimony here.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Yes.
So looking at potential zoning change solutions, right now, these are views from partway up the hill of Canyon Hill. It's that steep slope down onto the flat area where this new development is going in. As you can see in the images on the left, the properties overlooking the new development will look down into the second-story windows of the houses on the westernmost part of this development. You can look in the image on the right, and there is a house in that view. The houses that are up on the hill can look right down into the windows of that house, and the owner of that house is here tonight. She will tell you what that's like. If it were possible to only put single-story homes in the westernmost row of homes in this new subdivision, that greatly mitigates the problem. And if you look at the comprehensive plan, it wants creative solutions. It wants to improve the quality of life. And single-story homes are favored by seniors who don't want staircases. It makes single-family homes hot buys for people who need to move somewhere, to live somewhere, and don't want to deal with the stairs. So, annexation is a privilege. Annexation is not something that a city has to grant a developer. And I think it is appropriate that the city require the westernmost line of houses to be single-story only. This helps the quality of life for the people around them. It helps the diversity and different kinds of homes that are recommended in the comprehensive plan. The second zoning change solution doesn't directly pertain to this specific development, but when we talk about quality of life and improving that for the citizens and how to engage people in the city level decisions, if currently the city does not require that R1 or RE, or low density or residential estates, be homeowner occupied. But it turns out that homeowners associations can require that their homes be homeowner occupied. There's a very sad nationwide trend towards large investors who buy up many, many homes and then rent them out, making it very difficult for people to become invested in their community, both financially and emotionally. If we are able to require that R1 and RE developments be homeowner occupied, it's going to improve the quality of life in Caldwell. So I request that the city seek legal advice on the feasibility of that, because I don't know if that's even possible. But if it is possible, I would like the development paused until the zoning can be changed to require homeowner occupancy of any homes that are developed with those R1 and RE. And I think that's everything I have. We don't need to hit the backup slides if you don't want to.
I appreciate your testimony, sir. This is very well done. I wish we had the higher level discussion like you have here from more participants, and we'll take that into consideration. But thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Next is Teresa Soltis. With that close, I'm batting 0 on these names tonight. I'm sorry. Can you test your name and address, please?
Teresa Solis, 2509 Lincoln Street, Caldwell, and I have concerns.
Thank you.
So I will kind of echo everything that Ramsey said, but I do want to add one additional item.
our home sits at the top of that hill that you talked about, the hill at Lincoln, and I have pictures, but I didn't send them, but so you can get an idea of what that hill looks like. We live at the top of that hill, and the safety concerns are huge. The traffic going up and down that hill, the speed goes anywhere from 35, it starts at 45 at Lincoln, right before the school, and it goes all the way to 30 in like a, a quarter of a mile run. So cars are speeding up and down that road constantly, day and night. And, when they come up that hill, they cannot see the top of the hill. So you don't know what's at the top of that hill. People are coming out of their driveways or walking. It's extremely dangerous. I, for one, have almost been hit, so I know that. But, so that's where I would like some consideration on, is for the safety on the top of that hill with, additional 300 houses in this project, and then I'm not sure exactly how many houses are that went in the Liberty Springs and the El Monterey, but they're gonna add about 500 additional houses altogether, and just here, that's not even considered what's gonna, come to fruition down the road. But if you're in that subdivision, either one of these subdivisions, and you wanna go to downtown Caldwell, you're gonna go to Lincoln. And at the top of Lincoln is Georgia Street, you can kind of go to Marble Front, and that street's even worse. There's no sidewalks, it's very narrow, there's lots of cars parked on it. So even, it's a 2-lane road, but I know me coming through it, sometimes I have to pull off to the side just to let one of the big trucks go through. So if you're talking about 500, plus cars coming up and, potentially coming up and down that street, it's hazardous. And it's definitely a safety concern.
I do have a question about the, speed limits on Lincoln. You said they go from 45 to 30 at the school.
Yeah, so it goes, we just did it, so it's 45, and then there's a 30 for the school. And then right at the other side of the school, just as you start to go up the hill, there's a 20 posted that says it's 20 unless it's otherwise posted, and about 5 feet from that is a 30.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony, thank you very much. Next time to speak is Art Solis. Okay, does not wish to speak. And Kimberly Kaiser, please, would you testify?
Hi, my name is Kimberly Kaiser. My address is 2604 Polk Street, and I've been sworn in.
Thank you very much.
My house, I can't tell on that map. It's number 7 on this map that I received, so it's the most northwest corner. So my house, the lot is very long and thin, and it will be affected probably more than just about any other house in this whole development. And I really appreciate Ramsey showing the slides of my home, because there are easily, people that can look right in my windows, and so the value of my home will be decreased quite a bit, and then my privacy will just be a huge invasion. So that's one of my concerns. A very big concern as well is the emergency access that they're talking about. As others have mentioned, it's just some very uneven grass. It's not a road, it's not access of any type. I already received a letter from the city asking if they could pretty much destroy my driveway. I have a very steep driveway into my place, and the sewer system that they're talking about is right there at the top, just almost on my property. So they've already said they want to come and take, my driveway, and I said, no, that's not going to happen. You're not going to do that. They already often block it, so I can't even get out of my property. They shouldn't have given me permission to build there if that was going to be the situation. But to think that that could somehow be made into emergency access, first of all, I think it would mean we lose the creek, because that is right there where the creek access is. And it's just, I don't think it's even large enough. I wish someone would come out. I wish you guys would come out and actually look at what it is, because it's just not feasible, and it doesn't make sense, and it would be bad for so many people, let alone habitat for a lot of animals that live out there. So that's kind of a lot of my concerns in a brief description. I do have a question as well. On this map, it shows right in back of my house, or in back of my property, a little jutting out area where it looks like there'd be building in that, but I know when Bobby and I talked, the seller, previously, she mentioned that there wouldn't be anyone, so I'm just not sure which is the most current.
I would ask Katie.
Is this one that you mailed to us the most current? Because it appears that on some of these maps, it's straight across in front of my property and not jagging up to get in back of my property. Do you know what I mean?
Ma'am, would you direct the question to me, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. So that is one of my concerns, just clarity on exactly how much of my property it would surround. That's
Okay. Yeah, we'll address that question.
That's the rest of my question.
And I don't have the answer, so we'll go elsewhere, but, is that your testimony, then?
Yes, my testimony is just also to support what others have said about the traffic flow. The traffic is insane around there, and I'm very concerned about how it's going to affect so many areas. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to have a discussion, with the staff and address some of these questions. Some of the broader questions, so Ellsworth brought up by Mr. Boutros, are the very nature of long-range planning. I won't belabor that point, but it is part of this hearing. We have to comply with the comprehensive plan, and we have to comply with the ordinances. But a lot of these issues, particularly the ones that are occurring off-site or far off-site or outside the purview of what we're doing here tonight, and it can't really be addressed. And these, I would strongly recommend that you take up these kinds of questions with the city council. They have the power to move these kinds of ideas further. And I'm sure everyone in the room here agrees that the traffic is egregious. I'd say to this other hearings that for better or worse, the Treasure Valley has become one of the most popular places to move to and build and develop in the United States. We're right at the top for communities our size as far as census growth recorded in the last census. And that's just something we have to deal with. But we have to deal with it in a sensible manner and still comply with our comprehensive plan when we look at approval for proposals such as this. But I do have a couple of issues here that were raised tonight, and I'd like to ask Mr. McDonald if he could address Mr. Boutros' question about the more of an area-wide traffic study of the potential intersections or the intersections exist that are choking, and how the city is addressing those wider transportation issues.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. I guess the quick way to answer the question is the city has a citywide transportation plan. Now, that transportation plan is currently in the process of being updated by a consultant, and that process has been going on for about probably 4 months, and it's expected to go through the rest of this year. It's a long process, but they evaluate all of the major roadways and intersections in the city to evaluate traffic patterns and traffic needs. In addition to that, at the completion or conclusion of their transportation plan, the city will be eliminating the traffic mitigation process that we currently have, and the city will be going to a traffic impact fee. And that traffic impact fee will be assessed through a traffic impact fee commission, who will look at the transportation master plan and the costs and everything associated with that. And so the city is definitely looking long-term at the transportation throughout the city, and we want to make sure that everything that we require developers to do is consistent with a long-term plan. And that is the purpose of this refresh that we are doing on our transportation plan. I expect when that plan is complete, it will give us a lot of information. It will prioritize roadways and intersections that need work, and attached to the traffic mitigation will be a funding mechanism to make sure that all of these projects have some sort of funding or partial funding to get them completed. With regards to Mr. Boutros.
Yes, Mr. Boutros.
I should know his name by now, he's been to all of our public hearings for the last month, so, Mr. Boutros, yes. I have met with him and we've had some good discussions about the transportation. I agree with him that a traffic impact study should be done at North Illinois and Marble Front. That is it's kind of a bottleneck area where a lot of this traffic ends up. And I looked through a lot of the traffic impact studies that had been conducted by developments in that area, and that intersection has ironically been missed in all of those studies. And so that is an intersection that we should look at specifically, and I told him that I would pursue have a traffic impact study commission for that intersection to make sure that we are planning ahead with possibly dual left-hand turn lanes and things like that to make sure that that intersection is functioning properly. I don't know if that answers your questions. I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Donald. That answers the first question. We're here for a long night. Just to revisit our discussion about the extension of Florida, and Mr. Starr expressed concerns about the access to north. We did have a discussion where you're confident there's a way to service those properties. You mentioned we're talking something in the neighborhood of 1,000 acres that depend on that alignment of Florida.
So the alignment of Florida that is proposed will continue to the north edge of Huntington Ridge East, which is set up and designed to be able to service the properties to the north. Mr. Starr, I believe, represents a property that's a little further west, and so he's not immediately adjacent to where that road terminates, or will be available. But certainly the 800 acres east of him will have access to that road. And at some point, there are other future roads that are proposed, east-west roads up in that area, that will ultimately, once built out, will provide that lattice of transportation access for development as it fills out up in that area.
Yeah, I'm sorry I've forgotten the person testified about the right-of-way south of Lincoln for Florida seemed to be non-existent because of the recently approved subdivisions. Do you see a pathway from the south of Lincoln for Florida?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, there on the Florida alignment, there is not a pathway. There was one development that was developed some time ago that did not anticipate any kind of through access, and that was before my time here at the city. And then subsequently, the other two developments have come in, and without any access through that last development, it was not proposed to push it through there. There will be a connection on Aviation, which is another half mile to the east that will connect all the way down to 2026. And Smead ultimately is also supposed to connect from Lincoln down to 2026 and even to the north of Lincoln. The intent really for this whole area, there's a lot of concern about traffic from this area funneling to the west and going up Canyon Hill, but ultimately, once things are built out, the intent really is to push all that traffic south down to 2026, where they will have access then to proceed into the city or to proceed east toward Boise.
Thank you, that helps very much. I believe Ms. Kaiser brought up the speed limits on Lincoln. Seems like that's kind of inconsistent. Would that be addressed in a traffic study? Maybe dropping it all to 35 or something like that?
Yeah, Mr. Hearing Examiner, Lincoln, it is a little bit unique where whenever you have a traffic, speed that, decreases from 45 to 30, you always have that area where you find people that continue to speed. The best place, to address this, would be traffic commission. And, any resident or anyone that lives in that area is welcome to submit a letter to me or to the traffic commission, and that would be addressed in traffic commission where we look at the speed limits. In that commission, we have a representative from the police department, the fire department, engineering departments, planning and zoning, and we look at that specific issue, and then we determine at that point if a traffic study needs to be done in addition, or if there's a warrant to change the speed limits to make sure as people go up the hill traveling west, they are slowing down before they get up to where all the residential houses are.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. So there needs to be a formal request, from a citizen or resident for that commission to look at that?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a formal request. The traffic commission can address any issue that it would like to. But typically, most items come to traffic commission through a formal request from a resident or a citizen in the city.
Well, Mr. McDonald, I'm not a resident of the city, but would that be a possibility to note that, for your next meeting?
Yes, I can add that to the agenda, and I can make sure traffic commission addresses that, or at least takes a look at it.
I'm sure we can, get somebody in this room to make the formal request, either way, but I consider that an important follow-up. And I have just entered tonight into evidence, a letter, from Clark Wardle, dated February 15, 2022, addressed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and, Kara Douglas Waterman, and there's, I don't have time to read this, but they're just glancing through it, there's serious concerns, with this this letter concerning this proposal. Have you had a chance to read this, or you just get it tonight, along with myself?
Yeah, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I believe I did receive a letter dated February 15th from Clark Wardle, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the attorney for Mr. Starr. And I have not had time to run through it thoroughly, but I understand the gist of it, and I have been in communication with our city attorney, who I believe has been in communication with, Josh, Mr. Leonard, regarding the concerns that were raised in this letter.
My very brief review of this is there's some valid issues here that should be addressed, and I don't even know where to start, and I don't want to take the time at this hearing to go through it point by point, but it was entered into the record, and particularly concerned that they have a statement that this development proposal does not comply with the standard required by Caldwell subdivision ordinance for approval of a preliminary plat. That's a fairly serious concern, and quite frankly, I don't know where to go with this without having the time to review it and having staff devote the time to review this with whomever they need to in the city. But these are issues that seem to be pretty much along the lines of discussions we've had about the transportation system in general, and I think we've addressed some of these things, but I'd hate to leave this hanging out there without addressing these issues. Could you help me out with that, Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, Mr. Hearing Examiner, without reading through this thoroughly, and frankly, this is something probably that the city attorney would have to address more thoroughly, but my understanding is that I believe the claim is that because Florida Avenue is not being extended on the section line as part of this development, that it is not in compliance with the subdivision ordinance. And that is the reason that the city attorney had requested that this development go through city council at the same time as, Huntington Ridge East, which is extending, the collector road to the north, which is basically fulfilling that requirement. And so, I probably can't speak to any more detail on this, but that's my understanding, kind of in a nutshell, and, at this point, I guess that's, you know, it would be, whether you wanna recommend that we evaluate this further before city council, or how you want us to proceed on that, we would be happy to take your direction on that.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Yeah, I would like the opportunity to look at this too as well, and with the knowledge of the staff's reaction to that. And, there just seems to be, it's not fully baked, this proposal, with some of these considerations that we've heard tonight, some of the exhibits, but having said that, I would like to ask the applicant if they'd like to make a rebuttal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Tim Mockwa again with Hayden Homes, and I have been sworn in. I think it's a little unfair that a letter comes in today, and that's potentially going to delay us, a letter that we haven't had a chance to even see. I think it's from the same attorney, from Mr. Starr, that wrote the letter the other day that we did have an opportunity to look at and talk to staff with. So to get another one today that's now going to delay us, I think is a little unfair. So I would request that if you are so inclined to recommend approval, that we be given some time between your recommendation and city council to work with staff on some of these issues, particularly the not in compliance with the preliminary plat. I'm not sure what purpose that is and who that really serves. I would like to address a couple of these comments from some of the folks that spoke. First of all, just as a point of clarification, Caldwell City Code requires a traffic impact study be done on subdivisions with more than 99 lots. Since we're at 86, it wasn't required for Huntington Ridge West. However, we have had a traffic study done for Huntington Ridge East that incorporated the proposed 86 lots of Huntington Ridge West. So as part of that traffic study, we are analyzing all the intersections that were communicated with the city and agreed that were relevant to the traffic being proposed, additional traffic being proposed by both Huntington Ridge West and East. So that has been submitted to the city. And there is also a recommended traffic mitigation fee as part of Huntington Ridge West that we are required to contribute as part of our final plat. I don't know what that amount is right now. I believe it's in your staff report.
Around $50,000, roughly, ballpark.
Okay. Regarding Mr. Lee's comments, I think he made a comment about Polk Street citizens. He was the only one notified. The city has a procedure for, the 300 feet within the boundary, and all those folks were notified. He was talking about widening Polk Street. We're not proposing any additional vehicular traffic on Polk Street. Similar comment with Mr. Viola. I will say that International Fire Code addresses the requirements for emergency access, as well as the city's got requirements for their 20-foot either all-weather surface, so it can be paved, or a gravel, compacted gravel all-weather surface, 10% maximum slope. So we're going to have to meet all the conditions of the city engineer and the city for sewer access, as well as International Fire Code for emergency access. I think we've talked about the Lincoln Road. I think that's, just listening to your summary of the new letter that just came in today, it sounds like it's the same issue as far as the Lincoln Road. And as staff mentioned, and as I mentioned, there is no Lincoln Road south of no Florida Avenue, alignment south of Lincoln Road. Mr. Boutros, I think I mentioned the traffic study that we have commissioned and paid for and submitted to the city. Regarding single story on our west boundary, I'm opposed to that. We're proposing, 2.83, I think it is, density, which is well within the comp plan designation of low density for this area. Our proposed subdivision meets the requirements of the R1 zone, including maximum height. For clarification, one of the homeowners requested some clarification on what's going on. It may even have been Mr. Boutros. This fence that we've proposed along here is not our west boundary. It's the toe of that slope that they were referencing that's coming off the hill here. So the property line goes up further here, but we're holding the fence back and keeping all of this area that's shaded that yellowish green as part of our common area to be maintained by the HOA management company. And then this is the most current layout that we're proposing. I think the lady that lives right here, I'm drawing a blank on her name, Kimberly, had mentioned. So this is our most current layout. So this is a common area here under this street on both sides of this Balfour Street. So we've got common area ring in this whole boundary with a 6-foot-high berm and a 6-foot-high fence on top of that to help screen the subdivision. Again, as Mr. Boutros pointed out, saying that we weren't in compliance with the comp plan, there are a lot of different goals and objectives in the comp plan, and I feel like we're meeting the spirit of the comp plan and what's envisioned for this area. And I'm glad Rob mentioned aviation extension on our Huntington Ridge West, or East, excuse me. On the east side of that, we're required to build half and dedicate an extension at least along our frontage for the aviation alignment. We built aviation from Marble Front to 2026 as part of our Voyage Crossing subdivision, down to the light there at 2026. So, I mean, we are required to do that in our projects, and we've shown we'll do it. So. What else I'm happy to answer your questions if I have.
I appreciate your testimony, sir. I don't have further questions. Thank you very much. I do have some questions of staff, and that you can address these. We've had discussions about changing the plat various ways, making connection streets, and making those connections throughout, both on north and east, and linking this to the coming subdivision application. Do you feel that these kinds of things can be addressed at this point at a staff level? And should we move in that direction to take these issues up with council? Or secondly, you think we need to look at this a little further to ensure that the concerns expressed tonight are met and tabled to a subsequent hearing?
King Homes has been, very good, to work with staff, and we can address these issues, with them before council about the connections and staff, but with King Homes before council.
I am concerned, well, not just, the letter received tonight from Clark Wardle, that, the concerns of everyone who's testified here. There's been a rather broad spectrum of concerns, mainly, around, the issues of traffic safety and circulation. I'm reluctant to turn down loose without having these issues explored a little further, having something, to look at to resolve some of these issues. I guess it's a question of timing. Should this be recommended for approval, what is the time frame typically, before it gets to city council and the mayor? Ms. Root?
Thank you, Mr. Hearing. Examiner Debbie Root, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been informed. I have read this letter today and spoke with the city attorney regarding the letter and the implications thereof. And we were counseled by the city attorney who has been working with Clark Wardle regarding this and has discussions with them, that we do hear this case tonight. They recommended that we move ahead with it tonight and let you hear this and make your recommendations one way or the other. But that that Huntington Ridge West not go to city council, not be taken before city council until Huntington Ridge East is ready to go to city council with it. We do have that application complete in the office. The traffic impact study has been submitted. We will be processing that to schedule that for hearing, in the next couple of months. And then we would move those applications forward with the assurance. Essentially what our city attorney is indicating is that there's assurance that the realignment or the proposed alignment of the collector road from Lincoln Road to the north property boundary of Huntington Ridge East, the proposed development, is secured and in a development agreement with the city, basically. And so, city attorney did not find that the letter should impact this decision, as the city has provided or has assurances, or that the road alignment is being addressed. He did say that it should be essentially codified in the development agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Root. Yeah. Is there, in the staff report presented to me, a condition to that effect about the timing of the applicator, the hearings at city council for these two proposals?
There may not be, but we could place a condition on them tonight.
Okay. All right, with that, I will close the hearing. I have a little bit of work here as far as formulating some coherent conditions of approval. But I'll move to the decision stage at this point. And first of all, the looking at the staff report, page 10 of 35, the comprehensive plan analysis, I do find that adequate. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the comprehensive plan components as listed below, which I won't read them, but they're found on pages 10 and 11 of the staff report. And I agree that the request was not found to be inconsistent with any of the comprehensive plan components. And a codicil to that is that the irony here to achieve some of the goals that we have about a greater regional transportation system and infrastructure, fire safety, the whole works, does not go anywhere without growth and development. And those are the facts. It's a chicken and egg argument. Our task is to try to make that as coherent a progress in growth as possible, and in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the ordinances that stem from that. And we are already at a point where the community of Treasure Valley is being inundated and overwhelmed with growth, and so that the only reasonable way to deal with that is to grow in an orderly manner consistent with the comprehensive plan and our ordinances. And I see that this application does meet those general goals in the comprehensive plan, and I think that the substance of it is enough to further this to a city council hearing. And moving on, the findings of facts specifically to the annexation proposal ANN 21-18 are as follows. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinance standards and codes were used in evaluating the application. Item 7.1, conclusions of law for the annexation. The Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met. The hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of the Idaho Code and city ordinances. Item 8.1, recommendation for annexation. Based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council the case number ANN 21-18, a request to annex 29.51 acres, more or less, within R1 low-density residential zoning designation for the property R380, 300,000, a portion of R347, 920, 1,000, and R347, 9801, 100, in Caldwell, Idaho, be approved with the conditions of approval in section 9. To that, the board of decision will go to the city council to make on this annexation. I would like to add to condition of approval 9.3, found on page 11 of the staff report. And this reads, a development agreement shall be required for the annexation and development of this property. Period. The proposed agreement shall include conditions of approval for SUB 21-00048. Period. Moving on to the preliminary plat. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. On page 12 of the staff report, conclusions of law, preliminary plat. The Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met. The hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinances. section 12.1, recommendation for the preliminary plat. Based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number SUB 21-48, request for preliminary plat approval of Huntington Ridge West subdivision and 86 residential lot development on parcels R34804, R3480401,000, R34803, 5 zeros, a portion of R3479201, 3 zeros, and R3479801, 100, 30.43 acres more or less in Caldwell, Idaho, be approved with the conditions of approval below. The order of decision will go to the city council for the final decision. The conditions of approval, and this will, you have to bear with me, I intend to add some conditions to it. There are conditions 14.1 through 14.12 or 1.2 on pages 12 and 13 of the staff report. Those will be included as stated in the staff report and made available to the public before this hearing with the following additions. Add to condition 14.2, the final sentence added to that is, the development shall be limited to 86 residential lots. Moving to a new condition, 14.13, the micro pathways that intersect with Lincoln Road shall be designed for emergency access on Rodney and Stage 2, Rodney Way and Stage, or Stargill Place, I'm sorry. Rodney Way and Stargill Place. That's clear. Condition 14.14. The plat shall include a stub street from that would go to the eastern boundary along the line shown in the preliminary plat proposals with Stalwart Street. That there be a stub street, continuing Stalwart Street to the eastern boundary of the proposal.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, could you clarify if that has to be an improved street, or can it be grass that's dedicated?
Yes, that road can be unimproved, or the stub be, not a road, but the stub be unimproved, but we need the dimensions of a roadway, a public roadway, for future development. It could be fenced as well. Condition number 14.15, a new condition, and I may need help with this, but the condition of approval is that this application should be held from discussion and motion of City Council until the proposal to the east, Huntington Ridge East, is also before the council, so they can be considered sequentially at the same time. Ms. Root?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, thank you. That also, could you add to that also and/or if the developer dedicates right-of-way for the extension of the collector street? There is the possibility that if they did not want to wait to take this application to city council until the other ones, that if that right-of-way were dedicated, which is the concern of the attorney, if the right-of-way were dedicated for the, proposed extension on Huntington Ridge East. And we don't know that this is a possibility with the developer, but we want to make sure it's something that could be considered. Because that is the concern, is that the right-of-way being dedicated to the city, for that extension.
Then just really help me out with this condition that, we include wording to that effect that, the right-of-way be dedicated to Huntington East to align with the Stallworth Street.
From Lincoln to the north property boundary, so.
Oh. Okay, I was back on this, the Stub Street.
Oh, you're still on
You
the Stub
moved to
Street.
the,
Oh, sorry.
that's a new condition. Okay, let me,
I thought you were on condition 14.15, that this shall be held from city council until, the proposal for the development to be completed.
correct, and they both need to show, stub connection for the extension of Stallworth from the west development to the east development. And my recommendation is that the not approved, the improved, could be grass, whatever, just meeting the dimensions of a public right of way. Or grass and fenced off. Could be a play area. However you decide that. And, and we're talking about the alignment, the Florida alignment, that's kind of far away from this development.
Yeah, it's fine, thank you.
And, have a new item, 14.16, that, the, amendments to this, preliminary plat, shall be worked out with staff, to their satisfaction, before going to city council, or if they're not, it shall come back to this board, and, we'll take a look at it again. Is that clear? Okay, thank you, and, with that, I close this hearing on this item, and, adjourn the meeting. And thank you all very much for your participation. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. I'd like to reopen the hearing. I do think that, with call 1417, that the residences built on the westernmost, extension, of this subdivision, should be comprised of one-story buildings. And sorry about that. With that, I close this hearing and adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for your participation.
Hey, how are you? I'm good, thanks. Good, not even through, you know. Okay.
I think the drainage, that, right at it.